If I were to ask you now, how are you? Or if I were to ask you, what's bothering you? Is there anything that comes to mind? And each and every little thing that might pop up is very essential. It would benefit you to write it down, and you can deal with them one by one. You will eventually see that you can really get to a place to where there is nothing bothering you. And there's nothing wrong with having anything bothering you. There might be certain things in your life that you simply don't understand. Maybe you don't understand them well enough. But if you can take a little time to do that shadow work with those things, then you really can get clarity about them and you can set yourself free. So again, if I ask you now, how are you? What's bothering you? Then either you will have something that's actually bothering you, or maybe there is nothing. Maybe you are just completely happy right now, completely free, in complete clarity, on top of your game. But it's totally fine if there is something there. It's totally fine. You might have to work a lot with those type of things before you can really be in a state of being where you are completely fine. And each and every little thing is essential, whatever it should be. Any type of judgment or fear or worry, insecurity, whatever it should be, you can write them down. Also, of course, if you write them down, you can see them in front of you instead of having them going on in your mind. If they simply are running wild in your mind, it might feel like there is a lot more than there actually is. If you now were to write down what's bothering you, then you might see that there isn't a million things. Maybe there is 20. Maybe there is 5. Maybe there is just 1. But at least then you can have clarity about what it is, and you can deal with it appropriately. And we have to understand that there is a source guidance. There is a source truth. A source highest frequency way of perceiving each and every one of those shadows or issues or things that are bothering. And we're going to learn how to recognize that source truth. So if you now were to at least have one thing in mind, anything, it could be a small thing or a big thing. What's bothering you? How are you? Now it's possible to forget about this thing and rather focus on something else. Maybe it's some chocolate. But at some point it would be wise to deal with it. And you can try to deal with it now. It might not be the time for it. But at least if you know about that thing, then maybe suddenly, a little later, it will be the right time to deal with it. And by right time, I mean a time where you can enjoy it and you will succeed. You will definitely gain some clarity about it and progress, break free from it. And I would suggest that you use the 3-step technique. You recognize that you have that thing going on. You can absolutely keep it in mind right now if you want, what's bothering you. And don't judge it. Don't try to force it anywhere. Simply let it be your reality. It's fine that you have that thing going on. But now you focus on your source self-connection. You let your source self-connection grow. Visualize the light inside of you, in the core of your being. Visualize it grow, while you hold this shadow with an open hand. You don't hold onto it, you don't push it away. You're just content and happy and fine with it being there, and hold it with an open hand. You're not going to focus so much on the shadow dissolving and disappearing as you are focusing on your source self-connection. You simply focus on your source self-connection, focus on the source self-connection growing, and in the background you will see that the shadow is simply dissolving. Essentially, you have 100% experience at all times, and when it comes to that shadow, you might have a 50-50 or 60-40, where you are a little split about it. The shadow might be very active, and what is essentially going to happen when you focus on your source self connection is that the shadow, which had a certain size, is going to diminish while the source self connection grows, and the shadow is simply losing all its weight. It's becoming nothing, and your source self connection reaches 100%. You know, to do the shadow work, to deal with all of your 20 things. And of course, when you have dealt with 10 of them, maybe something more comes to mind. You know, if you really want to be on top of your game, if you really want to be free, then you really have to be good at these things. And there might be quite a bit of these things to deal with. And you need to be prepared for that and be fine with it. Take one thing at a time. Your focus and presence is here and now in your source self connection, and the shadow is gone. You might have to do this a lot. You might have to make a list now, sit and meditate on it, ask yourself, what's bothering you? How are you? What is it that is upsetting you? And write down each and everything. It could be everything from A to Z. If something pops up, if you have anything in mind, it will benefit you from writing it down. It doesn't necessarily be something that is really bothering you, might not hold a lot of weight, but at least you kind of got it out of your mind. You can now look at it and recognize what type of impact it has on you. And then you do the 3-step technique. You start with, let's say, an issue on the list that is really bothering you, and you let it lose its weight. You focus on your source self connection, hold it with an open hand, and see how it simply disappears. Because your source self connection is growing. The light in the core of your being is growing. That is where you shift your experience into. And then you can really gain clarity. You can choose to have clarity. Let's say if the shadow was about... I really don't want to use an example. I feel it is so distracting from the wide variety of issues that one could possibly experience. But you have to understand that each and every issue is going to have a high frequency way that you could perceive that issue, where you are simply in freedom, a high frequency freedom perception of that issue. If you can hold all your issues with open hand and rather increase your source self connection as you are aware of a given issue, then choose to be someone who can see that thing for what it is. I know it would be really nice with an example here, and I'm actually going to do it. But don't let it blind you to the wide variety of shadows that one could possibly experience. So let's say that we're now going to find a typical or a random issue, something that could pop up as I ask myself, how am I? And I'm going to recognize what the source, highest frequency truth or mindset in regards to that shadow is. For this scenario, I'm going to use my balding head. I don't feel insecure about it, but I bet that a lot of people can recognize that that would be a typical problem in life, a typical thing to be insecure about. Let's say that I was very insecure about it, I would accept it. I would accept that I'm insecure about it, and I would rather increase my source self-connection, as I am aware of this insecurity. Hold the insecurity with an open hand and increase the source self-connection. And what I would choose to become aware of is just a high-frequency, freeing way of perceiving that issue instead. A lot of people are bored. It is totally fine. It is even kinda modern. It is somewhat popular. It is nothing wrong with it. It is totally fine. It is nothing to care about. It even looks cool, and it is very practical. And I have nothing to worry about. It is totally fine. Now that is a high frequency way of thinking about it. It's source guidance. It's the source truth. And what I could have been thinking, what the shadow could have been or about, is that there is something wrong with me. People are going to notice. It's going to look weird. And if I walked around and thought like that, then that would be kinda bothersome. So what is bothering you? It can be much more than your hair. It can be so many things. What's bothering you? What's coming to mind? What was that? It is totally fine. Take note. You can deal with it. You absolutely can overcome it. You can see it for what it is, like I just did. And when you do, then you're free. So if you have benefited from this video, kindly consider becoming a supporter. This is all possible thanks to all of you that are supporting. And thank you so much to you. Abundance, health, and prosperity to you. Thank you.